Good afternoon, everybody. This is Attorney Danyl Patterson, candidate for the 190th state rep seat. For those who don't know, that's West Philly, baby. So we've got an interesting one today. We had a pretty good weekend. Everybody enjoyed their holiday. And now we are right back at it, making sure that we bring you everything that you need to know out in the 190th and beyond. Today, we're going to be joined by Reubon Jones of Frontline Dads. He's a social justice advocate, fatherhood mentor, and he does initiatives for returning citizens, which is very inclusive of our population, as the 190th has the largest percentage of returning citizens residing in our district. So let's welcome Reubon. Hey, Reubon.
Good afternoon.
There you go. You didn't have sound for a second. I just briefly introduced you, but I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about Frontline Dads.
Yeah, Frontline Dads, we do a couple of different things. Number one, we're a mentoring program. So we provide mentoring for at-risk youth between the ages of 12 and 17. We also provide reentry support for men and women returning from incarceration or dealing with the criminal justice system. We're also a social justice advocacy organization. So we fight to change policy and legislation around criminal justice issues such as pretrial detention, bail, probation, and now COVID-19.
Yes, there is definitely a lot going on the social justice front. You and I had quite a good talk earlier in the weekend, and then even just today. But I got to let you know that Hanif is giving you a big wave. He wants to say hi to you. I don't know if you can see him out here on your screen yet. So.
Oh, hey, what's up, Hanif?
There you go. But I really want to talk. We're going to kind of go backwards, okay? Because I know you've got a lot to tell us just generally about Frontline Dads. Reubon is really a force with his knowledge on exactly what's going on as far as social justice reform, what we need to do, how we can do it, and sometimes how we kind of fall through the cracks when we're trying to get things done, as legislators. And also, he's got some ideas on how we can all work together, meaning our representatives and our community activists and our community. So that's the thing. We all got to be in this together. So I'm going to jump right to the matter today, and that's really about COVID-19. As I explained to the folks, the 190th has the largest percentage of returning citizens actually residing in it. And so this is something that I've, been hearing about. And I'll tell you, it hasn't even been just since we got started with, the governor's new initiative. It's been since the absolute beginning of this crisis more than 5 weeks ago. I remember that, Zahira Ahmad, immediately her response is, what do we do about our incarcerated individuals and what do we do about our homeless individuals? Because those are two communities that are vulnerable and that we are responsible to. So one of the things that, I have made sure that I've likened this to understand is that when you've got folks who are incarcerated, who are in the system, it's no different than children being in the foster care system. We're responsible for them. We're responsible for their health, their safety, and their wellness. But everybody seems to forget about it because we're so busy being focused on the punitive part of the system. So what are you finding out there? And I mean, when I tell you that Reubon is active on the streets, he's been rallying around City Hall about this issue. So we're really going to talk about all of that. So tell me what you think, Reubon.
Yeah, so first of all, let me just say this. COVID-19, as you said, it doesn't discriminate whether you're homeless, whether you're incarcerated, whether you're living in the projects, whether you're living in the White House. So we have to learn to treat all of our vulnerable population with human dignity. So I say it to say, inside the prisons and jails, there's no social distancing. There are no protective gloves. There's no disinfectant, and there are no masks.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is allowing people to be sitting ducks inside these jails across Philadelphia, across the state, and across America. Because the prison gate or the prison wall does not stop COVID-19 from entering. So you have guards, you have social workers, you have counselors, you have a number of people who go in and out the jails every day. So once that virus is introduced into the jail and the inmates have no way of protecting themselves, we're in essence giving everyone a death sentence. So do you believe that someone should die because they stole a pack of gum or because they sold Lucy's on a street corner? That's in essence what we're doing when we neglect to provide basic human dignity or extend basic human dignity to people who are incarcerated. So what we've been doing is A, fighting for their release, and B, fighting for the humane treatment of everyone that's left behind. So that means taking hand sanitizer off the ban list of commissary items, providing both staff and inmates with gloves and protective masks, testing everyone inside the jail, both inmates and staff. That's the only way we could be certain to get control of the spread of this virus inside the jails. And on top of it, there's some people that we should be letting go. There are folks who are within certain parameters, who are part of vulnerable populations because of age, because of underlying health conditions, because of their proximity to their release anyway. There's people who will be getting out in a month or two anyway. Why not let them out early and let them be at home with their family where they can self-quarantine rather than be sitting in the jail where they're going to get unnecessary exposure. So these have been the kind of things that we've been really advocating for and fighting for and protesting for, both at City Hall, at the CJC, and at the county jail. We just had a rally the other day at City Hall, and we took the fight up to the CJC. So we stopped traffic. I mean, not the CJC, up to the county jails on State Road. So we stopped traffic up there. We had the Black clergy come out and speak. And Ms. Patterson, I hope you'll come out and speak at the next one, because we need leaders like you on the front line with the people in the trenches advocating for change. We've had too much of this same old leadership in this city who turn a deaf ear to the cries of the poor, the marginalized, people of color in this city. So we're here to let the mayor know, that the first judicial district, that, hey, our family members and community members are human beings too. They may be incarcerated, but they're still human beings. They're still part of the Philadelphia family of community members.
Well, I just want to jump in right here because you said something very interesting. And I think that the first part of perspective is that, one, people have a very unrealistic view of who's in jail and who's in prison. So, and when I said that, what you said, you don't need to do you need to risk your life because you were selling Lucy's? Or do you think that you deserve to die because you stole from the Rite Aid? And this is the thing. When we talk about the lack of humanity, we forget that a lot of crimes are what we call petty criminals. Now, they might be repeat offenders, so they actually get a sentence, right, but they're not, not everything is a crime against the body, as we say. It's not a crime against the person, meaning it's not all violent. A lot of it is the protection of property, meaning the protection of financial interest. I stole some diapers, I stole some formula, right, or I sold my body. Honestly, that's, it's a crime more against my body than it is against the community, honestly, because those are the morals laws. Mm-hmm. So that's who's in jail at State Road. There are folks, who, right, had, a little bit of weed, because they're still arresting them, folks. They're still arresting them. Remember that. They are still arresting them. It's about whether or not they're trying. It's folks who had, small amounts of drug paraphernalia, and also, I think that Tariq last week said something that was very important and very mindful. We are innocent until proven guilty. So, and that's the reason I wanted to talk to Reuben, because he's advocating social justice reform. And one of those reforms is about the cash bail crisis, and about the lengthy time that folks are sitting on State Road. So can you explain the difference between being at State Road and being, somewhere upstate? Because again, people who don't have contacts with the system have a tendency, and for a long time, I'm gonna be honest, I'm one of those people, before I went to law school and got to understand the system, I didn't know there was a difference between jail and prison. And I'm sure other people don't.
Yeah, great question. So jails, the way the process goes, you mentioned Rite Aid. So let's use Rite Aid for an example. You're in Rite Aid, you're still a candy bar. The security guard said, hey, you didn't pay for that. I'm arresting you. He arrests you, call the police. They put the cuffs on you. They take you downtown. They charge you with something, give you a bail. Let's say the bail is $100. If you can't pay that $100, you go up to the county jail on State Road. And right now we have 5 of them. Pick CFCF, DC, Riverside, and I think the Canopy's still open.
Mm-hmm.
So you sit there after your preliminary arraignment. If you can't make bail, they're going to schedule you for a preliminary hearing. Until you go to trial and get convicted either by a jury or a judge, you're presumed to be innocent. That's why I said we're fighting against pretrial detention, because it's so disruptive to people's lives that they have to sit in jail for years to have their day in court. So everyone, I said 90% of people on State Road haven't been for anything. The few folks that are on State Road they've been sentenced to a county jail sentence, which is only the maximum is 11 and a half months to 23 months. The maximum sentence you can get in a county jail. You go over 2 years, you get sent to a state prison. So a state prison is for people who have been convicted of a and sentenced to state time. So you may get, just say, a 5. That means you will spend 5 years in prison. You will go in front of a parole board. If they grant you relief, then you will spend 5 years under supervised release or parole. So everyone that's in the county jail, or the majority of the folks in the county jail, have not been found anything. So, and second, the Constitution provides you with the privilege of the presumption of innocence. So everyone who's arrested is automatically to be innocent. The burden is not on the individual to prove innocence. The burden is on the prosecutor or the district attorney to prove his guilt. So we're dealing with a whole lot of people on State Road who have not been proven to be guilty of anything. And for a lot of folks, I know that's a kind of a philosophical argument, but think of it like this. If you went to work and the stapler was missing and your boss said, hey, I'm going to fire whoever stole that stapler, and you just happen to have a stapler in your pocket that you just bought from Staples, and he says, whatever, John Brown, you're fired. And he said, oh, that wasn't me. I walked in here with this. And let's go to the videotape. Let's look at the videotape. If he still fires you without looking at that videotape, that would be a travesty of justice, because you have the evidence to say, hey, it wasn't me. It was somebody else. I don't know who did it, but I walked in this building with this stapler. And that's all the criminal justice system is. When you're in pretrial detention, it's just a holding place until people have their day in court, until we can, quote unquote, get that videotape or get that proof, or whatever his defense attorney needs to fight against the allegations that the district attorney has brought. So that's one level. The other level of it is, in terms of pretrial, some people just can't afford bail. Mm-hmm. So, if the bail is $100 or if it's $100 million, if you can't afford it, it doesn't matter if it's $100 or not if you don't have $100. So some people are forced to sit in pretrial detention for months or years just because they didn't have the money. If they were that dangerous, right, and let's just think this through logically, if they were that dangerous, they would have never been assigned bail. So people are fearful of what they don't know. But everyone who's been assigned bail has already been assessed not to be dangerous. Only thing the courts are saying is, give us this money to assure us that you will return to go back to court when your day in court comes. So it's just a protection. It's like a cosigner, so to speak, when you're trying to get your first car loan and your mom or your spouse, whoever co-signs for you. That's all that bail money is supposed to do, is co-sign, yeah, Your Honor, I'll come back to court. But if people don't have that $100, then they're condemned to sit in the county jail.
Well, I'm going to jump in real quick because one of the questions is, well, first, Joanne Jones wants you to say hey to you. She said you are always advocating, so thank you for that. But Rob Ridgeway actually
thank you.
And this is a question I've actually been asked too, as I've been advocating for cash bail reform as well. So Rob wants to know, when you were starting there, but I just wanted to make sure we got the question answered. Does cash bail reform work? So yes, and there are actually movements in like Los Angeles County, San Francisco, most of California, they don't do cash bail at all. And the reason for that is
neither does New Jersey.
Yes, I was going to say the studies actually show that just because you post bail, you're not more likely to show up. That's actually what it has been determined. And also that the cash bail system is actually just more punitive, meaning that it's just an additional punishment when you actually have not been found guilty. So I want you all to know that, so what Reuben was talking about, this assessment of your threat, that's the reason that they want to know what kind of crime it was, whether or not you've committed a crime before, what happened with the crime that you committed before, had you had any addition, even if you didn't commit a crime, did you have continual contacts? Do you have steady employment? Do you have a family that you're responsible to? All those things are important because that's what makes you come back to jail and have your day in court. I mean, come back to the courtroom and have your day in court. It's not because you put up $500 or $5,000 or $50,000. That's not it at all. Yeah. So, and then when you are talking about especially dangerous offenders, generally what happens is there's just no bail assigned. And that's because they still have a physical threat.
Exactly.
So you're likely to run. You have the wherewithal to run. So I'm sure y'all see Law and Order. They're always taking the passport, and there's always some multimillionaire, and who can't believe they're actually being put in jail to wait out their trial. Well, that's because they have the resources to actually flee. And so when you talk about that, let me give you an example. So my friend is thoroughly obsessed with the First 48. He's obsessed with that show. And the thing is, so he's always, is that really what happens here? Because like apparently I'm the lawyer for the First 48. He's always fascinated. But the thing that he's always amazed about is that somebody will, be on 59th and Race. That's where they picked him up. And then they can't find him, and he's on 55th and Arch. Like, because we don't really have many places we can go. They're like, oh, he ran, he was in hiding. So he went 4 blocks. It wasn't really that hard. And they found him at his girlfriend's house. It's usually not that hard. So that's the reason they want to assess how many resources. So that's the long of it. But the short of it, Rob, is that yes, cash bail reform is working. But that's all about either a law or the implementation of the system. So, and the reason I say that is because in New Jersey, that's actually the law. They don't have it. It's not a part of their system. In Pennsylvania, we do have cash bail. However, in Philadelphia, there's been a movement from Krasner's office and the DA to not ask for it. So is that correct? The assertion of kind of how that's playing out there, Rob? Can you still hear me?
You talking to me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I said, is that how that's playing out right now?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was talking about the law of cash bail in Pennsylvania versus the application in Krasner's office right now, how they've been moving forward with it. I was kind of talking about that juxtaposition. So if you could explain it, because sometimes I start talking about a lawyer, so that's why I like non-lawyers to come on.
So yeah, no, you gave a perfect explanation. So I'll give you this. One, bail typically in Philadelphia's history has been used as a tool or a weapon against the accused to hold them. So folks have assigned high cash bail to people just to make sure they don't get out. So $500,000 for somebody with a gun charge means I'll make sure you stay in jail, because most people don't have $50,000. The way the law applies is they're not supposed to assign bail higher than the defendant can pay. That's really what the law says. So if they followed the law and applied the letter of the law, then it wouldn't matter if we had cash bail or not, because people would be treated humanely and respectfully, but they will actually follow law and just assign a number that will allow the person to put up a certain amount of money just to guarantee they would return to court. And if they didn't, they would lose the money. So that's why I'm telling them they use it as a tool of submission to keep someone incarcerated. And they have a lot of tools on their tool belt, because the district attorney can also request detention without, he can request a hearing to detain someone without bail. So typically we'll see that if it's a homicide or particularly heinous case like a rape or a child molestation. So in general, those cases aren't going to get bail. If they do, it's going to be really, really high. For the sake of wanting to keep people, demonstrates that people, for the most part, return to court anyway, because it's in their best interest to, right? And I know that as part of a bail fund, we've seen that the people that we bailed out, so they didn't put any money up, we did. Those people return to court at something like a 95% rate. So the failures to appear is very low, and is no higher than when someone does not have bail. So at the end of the day, the Krasner's regime has introduced his plan to end cash bail, and his phase one included not requesting bail for 25 misdemeanor charges. So far that's worked. It's worked tremendously. It's been tremendously successful because people are able to sign their own bail, go home, and then come back to court later, which they've been doing. The city has also introduced something called early bail review. So if you've been charged with a crime, it's under the $50,000 threshold, certain charges, at the time they weren't doing gun charges, then the city would then, after 5 days, if you haven't posted the bail, they would allow you to sign your own bail, and you go home with the promise of coming back to court. That's worked with tremendous effect. So we've seen in other cities like Washington, D.C., like New Jersey, like California, who've ended cash bail. It hasn't increased the failures to appear in court at all. It hasn't had a negative impact at all. But what's interesting, the impact that it has had is financial. Because right now we have about 4,500 people incarcerated in Philadelphia on State Road. Imagine if that number was like 200 people. Imagine the hundreds of millions of dollars the city could save and reinvest those funds back into communities that are dying. Mm-hmm. Imagine, the impact you can have on human lives, because just being in jail for as little as 3 days can have a tremendous impact on your life. You could lose your job, you could lose your home, you could potentially lose your children. So we're actually saving that consequence for all those people. And then thirdly, and most people, this is going to be their biggest argument. What about the victims? Well, what happens is most of the time, the only thing the victims want is justice. They want to feel like their issue was addressed and they want to be healed from whatever harm was caused. Cash bail doesn't do that, right? So it's much more effective if the person can be home, going to work, provide for his family every day, and engaging in some meaningful way with restorative justice so that the victim can feel there was some redress in the harm that was caused them. But if the person is forced to sit in a county jail for a year and a half, then there's no redress for the victim. And so I think if we think about those things collectively, we'll see that cash bail does not work. It disproportionately impacts poor people and people of color, and it's something that we need to change.
Well, I just want to jump in here because you've actually sparked quite a few comments. So I want to come to them. So Joanne actually was just talking about what you said, and she wanted to talk about the racial bias of the bail. And you kind of touched on that after the fact, which is that disproportionately, not only are we being granted bail, but at a high enough rate that they're not able to overcome it. So the bail is really just too high for what they are wanting. And then actually Regina was talking about this, and we know it, but to see somebody say it, the city of Philadelphia has the highest poverty rate and the highest number of residents held in custody or incarcerated. And we know, Regina, based on even what Tariq talked about on Friday, is that almost 80% of those individuals who are incarcerated in the state of Pennsylvania come from Philadelphia County and Allegheny County. And of that 80%, almost 65% of that 80% is from Philadelphia County. So it's twofold. We talked about the prison industrial complex. We talked about warehousing our inmates. We talked about the census that's occurring right now and why you would not want to depopulate these prisons. But I'm going to let actually Reuben jump in here and tell you about that one again, because we need to talk about that as much as can be said. You know, why don't we want to repopulate the prisons during a census year, Reuben?
Wow. So first of all, thank you, Regina. I want to come back to Regina's point in a minute. But yeah, so the census is so important because of so we've heard this word gerrymandering, right? And we know the Republicans are good with gerrymandering, right? They want to always kind of stack the deck in their favor. But what people probably heard about gerrymandering. So let me take a minute just to explain what prison gerrymandering is. You get, like you said, the majority of people in prison across the state are from Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, the two most, I guess, metropolitan areas in the state. The rest of the state is very rural, very country, if you will. Very low populations, right? Formerly coal mining towns, farm town, that kind of thing, right? So Greater Ford at its peak had a couple thousand people. And most of the prisons capacity was around 1,500 to 2,000 people. Most. I think Greater Ford had about 3. But when you take 2,000 people out of the city and you put them up in the rural mountains of the Poconos, and the Poconos has about 5 prisons: SCI Dallas, SCI Retreat, SCI Fratville, SCI Mahanoy, SCI Cole Township, right? 5 jails, 2,000 people apiece.
Did you freeze?
Who gets counted on the rolls as citizens of those counties. So what that does is you added 10,000 additional people that contributes to representation. It contributes to federal dollars because federal dollars are allocated based on those populations. That's why the census is so important. And they will stay on those rolls for 10 years because the next census won't be for another 10 years, right? So you talk about hundreds of millions of dollars that would be channeled from Philadelphia to Lackawanna County, Luzerne County, where those prisons are. In addition, when they redraw the maps, because remember the maps are based on population, yes, they're going to count those prisoners in that map as part of that district. But those prisoners will have no voice. They will have no voting power. They will have no ability to be represented by the people who get elected in those counties. And if we remember, the American Revolutions fought on the premise of what? No taxation without representation. So those prisoners are living in the very same experience that the American Revolution was fought on, the same premise that America was founded on. So the hypocrisy of it all is that the very oppression that America wanted to escape in terms of breaking off from Britain, they're now exerting on prisoners. So that's why prison gerrymandering is so important for us to pay attention to. That's why it's so important to count your loved one on the census for your household so that we can begin to kind of numbers. And there's some legislation currently being filed. There's a lawsuit filed by the NAACP and some others, some formerly incarcerated people, including Celine Holbrook, who is fighting that very premise. I know State Rep Joanne McClinton has a bill to change that very issue. So there's some work being done around prison gerrymandering, and we have to pay attention to it, especially during this census time. And we have to fight collectively and make sure that our loved ones aren't exploited as a result of their, incarceration.
Now you said you wanted to get back to the question from Joanne when you were talking about the residents and the number of incarcerations. And I think
from Regina, when she mentioned Philadelphia has this high poverty rate, so America is the most highly incarcerated nation in the world.
Yes.
And Philadelphia, up to a certain point, had been the highest incarcerated per capita city of all top 5 cities. I think it dropped down 1 or 2 spaces now, but we're still talking about being at the top of the list. And people are asking why. Why is that? Why are all these negative statistics did it attributed to Black people, to people of color, to people living below that, that humane line of poverty and human dignity. Well, some people believe it's very specific industry, just like I was finished talking about the prison gerrymandering. Those areas where the prisons are located at used to be coal mines. The coal mine industry has been dead for years. Even though Donald Trump says he's bringing them back, guess what? In my lifetime, I've never even seen a lump of coal. I don't even know what it looks like. And I'm not talking about charcoal that you cook on the grill. I don't know what it is, right? Other than hearing people talk about it. So where's this great comeback that he's talking about? But you know what the coal is that he was talking about symbolically? Black coal, Black bodies, Black blood, sweat, and tears in these prisons. So if you map the prisons across the country, you will see that coincidentally they sit in the very areas that these coal mines used to sit. So they brought in a new industry. So they figured out how to criminalize Black and brown bodies in impoverished communities and then monetize them and gain politically. I mean, it's a hell of a scheme, and we have to pay attention to that, and we have to be able to combat that with a sound strategy and a collective effort.
Well, so actually, Regina came back to that and she said they make so much money from bail and incarcerating our people. The city want to know how they will make up for their loss. That helps to balance their budget before they give us what we want. But I'm going to actually go even further than that. When we talk about how our budget in Pennsylvania works, and which is, what the state reps and state senators are responsible for, is creating our budget. We have in our education system, one of the reasons that our children were not able to get the Chromebooks, and then we weren't able to get our teachers to do the online classes, was about funding. Want to know what happened with the funding? You can check out the Inquirer and find out that actually what happened is that because the governor, as a part of the stay-at-home order, shut down the PA wine and spirit shops, that the dollars for education were actually tied to the alcohol sales and the cigarette sales. And since we're all in the house and we couldn't buy any alcohol at all, and I guess we just wasn't smoking enough, being that they told us, anything that was, a respiration problem was going to be worsened, guess what happened? Philadelphia didn't have enough money for its kids to be educated. So it is actually one of the reasons that the school year just ended. That was the answer. The school year has just ended, and with no return to the classroom because we didn't have any money. So when we start looking at where our dollars are going, we need representatives, who are in Harrisburg, who truly understand what our community values, what our community wants their resources to go for. Do we want it to go because, according to Rob here, it's $46,000 for every inmate that we have housed, or do we want it to go because we want our kids to be educated?
Right.
So that's a question, and it's a very, very interesting one. It is a very, very interesting one, and we kind of got a little bit off track there because people just don't know, and their comments are like, "Wow, I just can't believe about that." I like the black coal. I'm going to use that. So when you see it on my campaign stump, I won't credit you with it because I done forgot it. But it's now part of my vernacular. We're going to talk about the black coal. Thank you very much for that, Reuben. But now a question becomes, how do we fix all this stuff? So we know what the problems are, right? We know what they are. How do we work together to get it fixed? And that's always where we kind of drop the ball. So let's talk about it, Reuben.
Yeah, so let me be transparent with you. I think that one of the challenges that we have is leadership. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I do want to be clear about this. For the better part of the last 20 years, this city has had Black leadership at the highest levels, right? From mayor to city council presidents to police commissioner, fire commissioner, school district, commissioner, whatever, just all these major capacities for leadership. But yet we're most impoverished big city in the country, yet we're the highest incarcerated, yet we still only have a 50% graduation rate for our high school students, a 50% dropout rate. We have this opioid crisis. Like, we're one of the, in North Philly, you're talking about building the SEPTA gas plant or whatever to add to the pollution. We already one of the most polluted cities in the country with the highest rates of childhood asthma. Like, I can go on and on about the negative categories that Philadelphia fits into. And I drop that on the lap of our leadership. Like, at what point do we begin to elect leaders who take ownership over improving their communities? Well, at what point do we begin to who lead with bold direction and not just kind of, getting where they fit in that, who worried about being down ballot to the mayor? Like, when do we begin to elect leaders who are going to thoroughly represent the people's interests and go to bat for us? Because we got a lot of community activists out there who are doing great work, remarkable work, incredible work. But let's face it, I'm a community activist. I can't sign any legislation. I can't pass any budgets, right? I can't allocate any money anywhere. And I think that's where we're falling down at, because the people that we elected are busy showboating, if you will, without really bringing any real substance or credibility to the table other than wearing a title. So what I want to challenge you is, like, how do we begin to work together? We got to elect some real dedicated, compassionate leaders who are not just concerned with social media or whatever titles, but really got the people's best interests at heart. We got to go back to the old school when, the Montgomery bus boycott was happening. People were committed enough that people with cars gave people rides, but people rode bicycles. They walked. They did what they needed to do because they moved with solidarity, right? And we're not moving with solidarity. So I invite you to invest in the leadership of those people coming out of prison. I mean, these are some brilliant brothers and sisters.
Yes, they are.
But we allow them to be tainted with a label. I invite you to support the leadership of some of these community members who were part of the gangs in the 70s, but then they reformed their ways, and now people look up to them and they listen to them, and they will follow. They will follow the people that they know and trust and respect. They'll listen to, and there's brothers and sisters in these communities who maybe they used to sell drugs or maybe then hurt some people too. I don't know. I ain't here to judge, but I do know they carry a lot of respect in their neighborhoods.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You still there with us, Reuben?
Because the people trust them. So that's number two. Number three, we got to reinvest in these communities. And I'm not just saying that rhetorically. I'm saying we fought hard to get the House of Correction closed. Right now, because of COVID, we're about 4,500 people in the county jails. I think it's going to get lower than 4,000. We're probably going to get around 36, 3,700. Close another jail and reinvest that money back into these communities being impacted by crime, incarceration, violence, unemployment, poverty. Because if we don't invest in the front end, we're going to continue to build prisons on the back end, right? So that's why we need visionary leaders, and that's how we begin to work collaboratively. So whether you're a part of the Masons, whether you're part of the fraternities and sororities, whether you're part of the Black church, whether you're a Black business owner, a basketball coach, the Boy Scouts, whatever organization or affiliation you have, you got to be willing to bring that to the table. And if we can do that, then we can amass resources, we can leverage our power, we can raise our voices, and we can say, listen, we ain't having this. And we can exercise that power at the voting booth too. Because the people who aren't serving our communities, we can move them out, and we can raise up our own leaders and vote them in. So that's my little 2-minute spiel.
Well, it was probably more than 2 minutes, but we needed it. We needed it. I mean, because that's good information. And a lot of times, and I've been, look, I'm a community member too. Okay, so I decided that I wanted to stand up and run to represent my community because I live in a community and I saw what's happening and I didn't like it. So sometimes you gotta put your money where your mouth is, as they say. But one of those questions
That's
becomes,
right.
with the leadership, do we all understand what we're running for the office for? Meaning, do we understand what the work of the
Mhm.
office is? I have seen several different situations, even during COVID. I'm sure y'all see it. Every single day, the law is changing. And the reason it changes every single day is because they realize they're making bad law. And it keeps happening. As a matter of fact, this
Right.
week alone, they expect to vote on 8 amendments to the COVID law they passed. So, and what the amendments are about: new waivers for businesses that can reopen, new waivers for businesses that have to be closed, new waivers for what they're going to do about unemployment, because they don't know, I don't know if y'all know, the system is still down, so you can't file your 2-week claim. People haven't gotten their PIN numbers who never had unemployment before, so they can't do their telephone pat, every 2-week responsibility. So the system has really been broken, but unfortunately, and I know that we're
Right.
in a time where nobody's ever seen anything like this before, but come on. I think that the best thing that you said, other than black coal, I'm also going to say this: visionary leadership. Because, we needed to be 3 steps ahead. And instead, we're 10 steps behind every single thing that has happened with this pandemic. Every single thing. And so when we're 10 steps behind, we're in constant flux. And one of the reasons that we kind of started doing these lives was because people kept asking me, because nobody really understands what's happening. So, and we've got a community that's not necessarily, I mean, these are not the folks who watching CNN all day long. And I love that they're not. I really do. Because sometimes I feel like my mind is, running through with so much information, but it's so much bad information, or so much misinformation. That's what I'm going to say. It's not bad information, it's misinformation. And everybody wants some information that can calm them and that they can trust to be accurate. Which is why I bring people like yourself on, Reuben, because I know I am smart enough to know what I don't know. So you bring in the professionals, you bring in the folks who've had their boots on the ground, who've been working one-on-one with these problems to figure out how you get it done. Just like you said, you work with those, the Minnemill Creek out there who've actually, returning citizens, or, old gangbangers who said, what, they saw Lex Street happen. They said, not in my community ever again. That's who you have to reach out to. You've got to get folks on your staff
Right.
who understand what the problems are and where they come from, so that you can write good legislation that makes an impact. You need to get the men together who are going to work on these fatherhood initiatives, so that we can make sure that our returning citizens have a relationship with their kids. I mean, that's problematic just in of itself. And I think that is actually what I found most impressive about your resume there, at Frontline Dads. Can you tell the folks out there, about how you do that family unit building, that fatherhood initiative piece?
Yeah. So I know my strengths lie, I know lie. And I think that I would never represent something that's going to be divisive in our communities, right? So when I
Mhm.
talk to men about being responsible fathers, or young men about respecting your mother, I need the sisters to know we in this together. Don't allow them to divide us. Like, I have a specific role to play, and I'm comfortable with it, right? Sometimes I play the role of agitator, right? And I'm comfortable with that. But I'm never going to do something that's going to be a disservice to our community. So if I need to pull the brothers into a back room and have a tough conversation, if I got to raise voice a little bit, because I don't always, I know one of the criticisms of me is people, I don't talk the nicest to people. But the reality is we working towards an end, right? And that end means we got a stronger, thriving Black community. So I want the sisters to know, when men say, hey, we need some men to show up for this thing, we need some men to raise their voices, don't feel disrespectful or value. Be happy that the men in your community are taking on a role of leadership to change your community. I need y'all to know that. So that's number one. If I criticize an elected official, it ain't out of lack of love or out of respect. It's to hold you accountable, because we didn't elect you to be friends. We elected you to do a job. I like you. You're a good person, but you ain't doing what we elected you to do. And if you can't take that criticism as an elected official, then you shouldn't run. If you thin skinned, if you're sensitive, don't get in this game of politics because you're going to get some criticism. And that goes for anybody, whether it's a mayor, state rep, city council, whoever. Like, you got to open yourself up to being fair game. If you ain't doing the job of a leader, then we got to check you on that. Simple as that. And if you're afraid of being held accountable, go work at Walmart or something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, our community is dying. This is a critical mass. We've already reached critical mass. I don't have time to be sensitive and to play games with people. Our people are dying. COVID-19 has demonstrated how quickly the world can change and how drastically our lives can be different almost overnight, right? So if we don't use some critical thinking and moving with some sense of urgency, then guess what? We're going to be back on the plantation for real.
I think one of the most fascinating things you said to me earlier was that COVID-19 has highlighted the disparities of our society and has really shown where we're lacking. Can you talk about that a little bit, Reuben? You still there?
I don't know if we lost
it. There you go. Can you hear me? My
connection. But I'll say this again. I stand with my community, and I know a lot of leaders is doing the same. One way the city can support that is, a lot of these community leaders are leading from their pocketbooks, right? From shoestring budgets. Mm-hmm. And, doing whatever they can to impact their community. So
well, unfortunately, we're at the, I think, severe thunderstorm part of today.
One thing the city can make sure that on the front lines, be in the trenches, and I invite you to really roll your sleeves up with the brothers and sisters who are willing to be in the trenches with you, because we ready for war. I should have worn my war paint today. Nice.
Well, you know what, Reuben? Thank you for the invite. So, as long as I know where it is, I am so there, because sometimes you need to make sure that you are showing that you stand side by side. Not just that leadership is Absolutely. Not about always being at the top. Leadership is sometimes being amongst the people doing the actual work. So this has been a fabulous talk, but I think that the tornado watch done got us there, because now you're blinking in and out. Can you tell the folks how to reach you? I put it down the bottom, but tell them how to reach you, frontlinedads.org, gotcha. And where can they reach you on the phone?
267-414-4764.
And do you guys have social media? Are you like Frontline Dads across all social media?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, Frontline Dads, Facebook /Frontline Dads. Twitter is under Reuben Poet, REUBENPOET. So yeah, we shout out angry tweets every now and then to, so it'd be good.
Okay. And Reuben, not only will I hope to be seeing you on the ground, but I would love to have you back in studio. We've got quite a few requests for you to come in to talk some more. People are really interested in your initiative and how they can be of service. So maybe even if we can get maybe one of the men who has maybe going through the program, or one of the kids who's aged out, who's going through the program, that would be truly fabulous, because we want to see how it actually impacts lives. Right.
So let me say this real quick, because I invite we're down with that. We give out food every Saturday, right? During this COVID-19 pandemic. We also help folks with toiletries and gift cards to kind of help them through with basic necessities. And if you want to come out and help with any of that, we welcome it. We also are partners in and I get to talk about this, but a participatory defense hub, where we just got a group of community members who once a week we provide like a free legal clinic to help people navigate if they have an open case or if you got a loved one that's incarcerated. You don't know what to do. You don't know the big words that they're using in the courtroom. You don't know what an arraignment is or pre-trial, any of those things. We help them navigate through that so they get the best possible outcome for their loved one, which hopefully is always to get them home. But a lot of people are intimidated by this system. They don't know. You only know what you know. Yeah. And, this system takes advantage of that. It exploits people and it eats people and chews them up and spit them out alive. And we're here to prevent that. So if anybody's dealing with an open case or you got a loved one dealing with an open case, every Thursday we meet at Zion Baptist Church at Broad Venango. But right now, because of the quarantine, we're doing it online as a Zoom meeting. So if you want that information, email us or call me and I'll give it to you. We'd love to have you. And we just walk you through and help you create a game plan to get your loved one home.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so what time is that Zoom meeting, Reuben? What time is it? I don't need the link. Just what time is it generally?
6 o'clock on Thursdays. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. every Thursday. And if you email me or call me, I'll send you a link to join. In fact, I'll send to you. You can post it with your followers.
I will. Okay. So I just did that. Now, I would be remiss because today is a very, very special day. And I tell you all the time that, we don't want to just talk about bad things. We want to talk about good things. So today is my foster brother's birthday. So I have to give a birthday shout out to Rudy Williams. He doesn't know how much he changed my life when he came into our household. Yes, thank you. And I'm sure Rudy wouldn't mind, talking about his story.
That's right.
But, he was, an adjudicate youth. When our parents got involved and took him in, and he really turned his life around. He's a small business owner. Mm-hmm. He has a CDL and is working towards buying his own truck. And, but he was also a blessing to me because he had gone back to school and became my mother's nursing caregiver when she was sick. So he's, definitely the kind of stuff that young men are made of and turn into. And I'm just so very proud of him. And I wish him the happiest of 40th birthdays today. So this is Danyl Patterson here with Reubon Jones. Reubon Jones of Frontline Dads. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you. Always know that you can reach out to my office with any questions at 267-291-4702, 267-291-4702. And as always, I'm reminding you that we will do better together. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.